Welcome, everyone. Welcome to DenverScript May 2025. I am CJ. I'll be your MC for tonight. And first up, we're going to go over the Code of Conduct. This is the abbreviated version. If you want to see the full Code of Conduct, it's at denverscript.com/code-of-conduct. But DenverScript is dedicated to providing a harassment-free community for everyone. Participants violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the community at the discretion of the DenverScript organizers. If you're being harassed, notice that someone else is being harassed, or have any other concerns, please contact a DenverScript organizer immediately. Like I said, I am a co-organizer. My name is CJ. We also have Marlena over there. There's also Cass, way back there. And there's also Chad, the guy in the hat right there. We're your organizers. If you need anything, we're the ones that you can come to. If you don't feel comfortable coming up to us, send an email to denverscript@gmail.com. We will take care of it. Some ground rules: be kind. Don't talk over the organizers or speakers. You're doing a wonderful job of that right now. And there will be Q&A after each of the talks. So during that time, please ask constructive questions. Don't try to prove a point or a gotcha. We're all here to have a good time and learn. So with that, I'll let you know that we're live. On YouTube, we're DenverScript Meetup. And that means if you're going to ask a question, wait for the wireless microphone to come around. We'll have somebody that's running around with that. That's so that everyone in the room can hear you, and also so that the people on the live stream can hear you. Yeah, you'll get the spatula of speaking during that time. First up, thanks to our sponsors. So this space is called Code Talent. They let us use it completely for free, and we really, really appreciate them. They're a technical talent agency. They know the difference between Java and JavaScript. And if you're looking for a job or you're looking to hire anyone, reach out. So code-talent.com. There might be some business cards floating around too. So they're really great. We appreciate them for letting us use their space. So yeah, check them out. And we're always looking for other sponsors. So if your company wants to sponsor the meetup, you'll get a plug just like that. Let us know, denverscript@gmail.com. And also, we're always looking for speakers. Some of you, there's a couple of talks that came in I haven't responded to yet. I will respond soon. But if you have something that you'd like to talk about, it can be a short talk, a long talk, of any length. It could be beginner, it could be advanced, it could be about not JavaScript, it could be about soft skills, or different things like that. We accept talks of all kinds, so if you have just the slightest desire to give a talk, please submit denverscript.com. All right, next up, we will have the JavaScript news being covered by Marlena, and then that will flow immediately into a talk that she's going to be giving. So please give it up for Marlena.
Love it. Eternal adapter problems. Oh, you've got another one. Oh. It's fair. Don't trust me. Not on this, baby. I could have brought my Windows machine. That would have made everyone happy. Oh. I don't. Oh.
Yeah. It's not AirPlay.
Yeah.
If you pull up displays, you can mirror instead of extend.
Extend. Nope. I still did the wrong thing. Oh. Nope. Mirror for unknown display, please, and thank you. Okay. As someone who always advocates for a tech check, I'm quite embarrassed. But hi, I'm Marlena. I'm going to quickly go through the JavaScript news for the month. I've got the DenverScript.com website open because this is where you can find the news I'm about to cover, as well as all of the news that we've covered over the past, oh my gosh, we're coming up on 2 years. Wild. So for May, it wasn't really a ton of news comparatively, but there was some interesting stuff. I'm always kind of keeping an eye on the TC39 talks and decisions. So we've got the agenda for the 108th meeting, if you think you have a lot of meetings. But there's also this really fun, Node.js is looking to know what you want to see with Node. It's open right now, so if you have thoughts and opinions, which I know you do, then you can go tell them all about it. I also found an article on my oh-so-beloved This in JavaScript. It's my favorite little, I'm going to confuse you now, for new developers. So, great article that really digs into this in JavaScript. Also, really loved this article about using compile hints to kind of give V8 a hint about what content you want it to load to create a faster site. Always love those kind of obscure little performance tweaks. And lastly, for those who are new to the language, and honestly for me, because some of these don't mean shit to me, an operator lookup for JavaScript. So the next time that you're like, God, how do I do the thing? This could be a way for you to figure it out without digging through a bunch of web pages. You can just come see what double arrow equal sign means. Don't fail me now. Left shift assignment operator. A bitwise shift operation on a variable. So have fun with that. The last thing I'm going to call out from the news is that React Summit US in New York has been announced for November. They have the call for proposals link on the page. They do not have a closing date listed, so it's open until shrug. But it is available remote, and I'm not sure if they're allowing remote speaking, but it could be an opportunity to go engage with that community without having to travel to New York, or if you're able to, travel to New York. And that's the news. Anyone else have news they think I should have brought up? All right. Oh, I love how it's not purple at all. That's cool. Let's talk about understanding the whys of accessibility improvements. Accessibility practices are becoming more known and more common, more widely applied, which is awesome. State and federal digital accessibility guidance has come into being, including some EU regulation that means that if you want to do business in Europe, you better have an accessible website or web product. The WCAG, I hate saying that. I'll define what that means later. List of accessibility improvements is way overdue to have the spotlight. And as an accessibility advocate, I'm finding some things to smile about, even if you can't see it. But I find myself a little lost in the clouds as I think about how to train the content creators at the library on how to produce accessible content. Well, I understand that it's simpler to just give everyone a checklist and say, do this. It feels a little lackluster. Everyone will get much more out of knowing why they're doing it. When I'm mindful of my tab order, or choose a section tag over a div tag, what does that do for somebody accessing my site with adaptive technology? My name is Marlena Baker, and on this slide, there is an image of me. I am an IT applications technician at Boulder Public Library. I have a background in software development and education. I care about user experience for all users, communities, learning, ice cream, bees, and many, many other things. I am currently drowning in tomato seedlings and knitting projects. Today we will gain a basic understanding of the what and how of accessibility work, just some ground laying so that you can understand what's coming next. We will draw from that understanding to find the core practices, and we will imagine a situation and apply these practices to it. So what is accessibility? Accessibility means developing content to be as accessible as possible, no matter an individual's physical and cognitive abilities and how they access the web. That's the definition put forth by MDM, the Mozilla Developer Network. And on this slide, we have a photograph of a line of people working on their laptops in a public space in front of a window. You may also see accessibility referred to with the shorthand of A11Y, which is a very obtuse form of abbreviation. I write it in my notes all the time because I'm a messy note taker, but it has come to my attention recently that it's not actually very accessible for those with reading, visual, or cognitive disabilities. So I want you to know that the term exists because when you're Googling it, you will see it a lot, but I will not be using it in my talk beyond this moment. So how do we make things accessible? I just kind of threw some stuff on a slide in no particular order. Alternative text, proper headings, meaningful link text, semantic HTML, ARIA attributes, captions, video descriptions, good contrast, content flow, navigation, focus highlighting, tab order, mark decorative, keyboard interactions, numbered lists, audio control, font size, name and title attributes, target sizes, and role attributes. And the list goes on. These are just some of the practices that you should adopt to make your digital content more accessible. These are in no particular order, but some of them are contentious. See the ARIA attributes. I included them because if you simply cannot do what you want to do with good structured code and defined content, then I'd rather you use ARIA than nothing at all. But it should be our last resort. A title slide that says, why though? Why are these practices so important? What do we achieve by following them? Let's discuss. A slide titled, Accessibility has two audiences. Let's go back to the beginning of the problem, the end goal. Referring back to the definition from MDM, we want to make sites that are usable no matter an individual's physical and cognitive abilities and how they access the web. In my growth and accessibility work, I found that that phrase really doesn't mean anything unless you actually know the different ways that people may access the web. A column that says, the user who wants to consume your content like any other user. They may have disabilities that impact their vision, hearing, mobility, cognition, non-exhaustive of course. We're doing the work in order to help humans using our site. There's an icon of 3 people on this slide for this concept. The second column, the technology that will provide an alternative means of or assistance in consuming the content. Some common ones are screen readers, text-to-speech, dictation software, and keyboard navigation. There's an icon of a monitor with the accessibility symbol, you know, the spread guy in the circle. We are making the changes we make with the technology that they use in mind, this software. Thanks to all the hard work standardizing what accessibility practices look like, if you follow the guidelines put forth, the software will know what to do with it. And that's pretty amazing considering it's made by all kinds of different companies. And so these standards are a labor of love, shall we say. The three ways that I would group these practices, the three whys that I have hit upon, are structure, clarity, and alternatives. Structure helps the program read our site as a cohesive document and sets up a flow of information that the user can follow. Some examples: proper headings, semantic HTML, content flow, navigation, tab order, and numbered lists. Clarity gives the program clues about the purpose of the content so it can provide content and interaction-aware guidance to users. Again, semantic HTML provides this as well. Meaningful link text, good contrast, navigation, focus highlighting, mark decorative for images, audio control, font size, and role attributes. Alternatives address the reality that some content just isn't consumable by all users in its current form and provides an alternative for them to consume that content, such as alt text, ARIA attributes, captions, video descriptions, keyboard interactions, target sizes, name and title attributes. It's what I'm doing right now. Header image. Let's imagine. When presented with a complex feature with a lot of interaction, accessibility can feel daunting and be pushed to the wayside. So let's talk through a quick scenario. I have 1 minute left. An element for promoting user-generated content. It needs to be self-contained, display an image, text, and several kinds of links to the content, to the creator's page, and to 3 tags to help users find more content like this. Take a moment to yourselves. I'd love to host a discussion, but I can't because I have no pacing. How does it look to apply our principles to this feature? Unfortunately, I have not left time for questions, but I'm happy to chat after the meetup during our networking time. The slide deck will be released through the DenverScript meetup page. There is a slide deck, I promise. And it includes some links to the WCAG guidelines and some of the recent legislation that I mentioned. And you will also find a picture of an orange cat sitting in front of a laptop that just got included because it makes me happy. Thank you all very much.
All right, next up is Daniel Kai. He's going to be giving a talk. Let's take 3 or 4 minutes, use the bathroom if you need to, grab some food if you'd like, grab a drink. Daniel will begin in 3 or 4 minutes. right, please finish up your conversations starting in 10, 15 seconds. Or now. You good to go? You good, Daniel? Cool. All right, let me intro your next speaker. All right, so your next speaker is Daniel Catt. They are a building architect turned software developer who likes coding, climbing, and cats, among other things. Tonight, they'll be giving the talk, Coding the Vegetable Garden. Please give it up for Daniel Catt.
Cool. All right, so this is basically a case study about this mildly over-engineered app I built to solve this very specific problem I was running into. Where to put my first vegetable garden. All right, let's dig in. See, okay. I said dig in, not begin. It was like a pun. It doesn't bode well for the rest of it. Anyway, let me get to it. Okay, here is the app. Now, in short, what it's doing, is analyzing a whole bunch of shadow imagery, and then it's calculating how much sun each spot receives. And then it's drawing this heat map based upon all that data, and then finally it's showing you a relative score for all these hypothetical locations for a vegetable garden. That's about it. Thank you. Shortest DenverScript talk ever. No, now that you've seen what it does, I think what I really wanted to talk about when I was making this talk is like how I got here, or maybe more interestingly, why. Like, why did I spend so many hours coding this when I could have honestly just looked out the window a few times and got the same result? So to understand that, I think first you have to know a little bit more about me. So here's a few relevant facts. First of all, I used to be an architect. Like building architect. I worked on a lot of train stations, airports, that kind of thing. The first programming language I ever learned was processing, which is a Java, not JavaScript, Java-based like graphical language. My wife and I recently purchased our first home about 10 months ago, so this would be our first spring in the house. And my wife, there she is. She loves plants. Like the amount of money we've spent on now deceased vegetation, I wish it was like tax deductible or something. She really likes plants. Let me show you. Okay, so this photo is from our wedding. So was the last one, actually. And this bouquet was actually made by my wife, with some help from family and friends. But like, did you know you can DIY the flowers for your entire wedding? I had no idea. But she did. She really wanted to do that. I think she won some kind of award for it in the end. But it was way more work than I expected, like days of work. Like first of all, we had to go to the airport, down to this special hangar, like down this road through a fence with barbed wire and a gate where the cargo planes deliver and stuff. And we had to go there on multiple days because different types of flowers, they have different travel itineraries, I guess. They have to arrive different number of days in advance. And we took them all home and put them into individual bins of water for different numbers of days or hours. And we bought all these black bins, and we ran out of these black bins, so we're running around my future mother-in-law's house, like grabbing vases and dumping the toothbrushes out of the bathroom. But it's okay. She's kind of a hoarder, so it worked out. She had a lot of... Anyway, the house looked like this. It looked like a jungle for the week leading up to the wedding, and I think my wife loved it. Like, she was in her element. She really likes plants, is what I'm trying to say, especially edible plants, which brings us to our old apartment. Now, here is our apartment with our single north-facing window, and these are some of my wife's valiant efforts to grow herbs. We have some very optimistic-looking basil, maybe recently purchased, I don't remember, some thyme, and then in the front is the rosemary because it's a north-facing window, so it doesn't get a lot of sun. And then when it does, sometimes the cat decides that she needs the photosynthesis more than the rosemary. So we come home to this. So basically, we needed a better place to grow edible plants, which brings us to our new backyard. with plenty of space. I mean, it's not that big, but for us, it felt like we had just got our own farm out in the middle of Kansas. When I say Kansas, I mean like just anything east of the airport. That's what I call Kansarado. Okay, so when it started to look nice like this, felt like spring, we got excited, and then we both hopped in the car, went to Home Depot, bought the stuff, got home, unloaded the stuff, and that's where I was confronted with maybe the biggest conundrum of my April 2025. Where were we going to put it? So, because my research tells me vegetable gardens, they need like 6 to 8 hours of sunlight minimum to grow, but more is better. So I'm like, how can I find the sunniest spot in our new backyard? And then I remembered from like slide 3, I'm an architect. So I did, I think what any classically trained architect and tech geek might do. First, I borrowed my boss's laser scanner and made like a point cloud model of my house. It has like millions of points to like 1/8-inch accuracy across 1,000 feet or something ridiculous like that. And then I created a BIM model, which stands for Building Information Model, which is this parametric model of your house. You can adjust wall thicknesses, door heights, window spacing, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a big 3D spreadsheet. This is like the software architects and engineers use to make buildings these days. And then, using one of my company's apps, actually, I imported it into SketchUp, which is like one of my favorite softwares for design and analysis because it's so fluid. It's just like points, planes, and lines. I mean, it's almost like sketching in 3D, which I think is why it got that name. And then I set up these solar scenes. So based on my home's exact geographic location, which you can enter, and that you can pick the time of day and time of the year, it makes accurate shadows. And it animates between them. It animates the solar path. And then, this is where I ran into a snag, because what I wanted to do was do just a simple solar analysis. Like, I thought, there must be a tool out there I can use, you know? SketchUp has a warehouse of extensions. It's literally called the Extension Warehouse, if you've never used it. So this is the first one I tried, a highly rated plugin called Sun Hours. And it looked like it does what I want. It creates this grid of panels and then calculates the solar exposure on every panel in the grid. But I kept getting errors. I couldn't fit the grid to my model. And then there was an error creating the grid. So when I tried to run the analysis, there's no faces in the selection because, as the software reminded me, the faces come from the grids and it couldn't generate the grids, so there could be no grids in my selection. So I tried another plugin called Shadow Analysis. This one also, look at the graphic. Like, it looks really, really promising. The problem here was I was using SketchUp 2024, and it turns out this extension hasn't been supported since 2020. At my company, we build some SketchUp extensions, so I took the Ruby file. I tried to like hackily load it in too. That didn't work, not compatible. I even tried Autodesk Form. Autodesk, like, this is a huge company. They make AutoCAD, which you've probably heard of, the BIM software I showed earlier, all that kind of stuff. Like, my company collaborates with them all the time. We built our own Forma extension. Forma is like designed for analysis. Should work, right? Turns out I could not import my model, so I had to remodel it, and the remodeling tools were way too coarse. Like, this is the best I could do before I got angry. This is my house and the immediate neighbors and the garage, and the flat roof is all I could do. And this is the analysis. This is the best I could do. It's telling me that everywhere on the not flat roof gets the same amount of sun all day. So I tried so many more that I'm too angry to include here. And my frustration level just keep rising. Like, I ran into sign-up forms that didn't work, and incompatible model formats, paywalls, download and installation errors. Like, and that's where I thought, okay, raise your hand if you've also had this thought. I could build it myself. Yeah, it's a common. Okay, so I mean, think about it. I already have the model. I have the shadow studies in SketchUp. I have access to these AI coding tools. Like, how hard could it be? I think that's another common developer thought there. So here was my plan, which I thought was pretty simple. First of all, I would export all of the shadow scenes I've made from SketchUp. And second, I'd write a little app that would look at every pixel in every image, and then it would simply classify whether it's sun or shade, and that's it. like A or B. And then finally, I would make a heat map. So I would take, all the images are the same size, right? So I could take each pixel and then map it to a single image where if it's white, it's sunny all the time. If it's black, it's shady all the time. And gray if it's somewhere in between. I thought it sounded simple. And then even simpler if you use AI, which is what I did. So this is the prompt I gave Claude to start. And this pretty much describes what I just described in the last slide, but with words instead of diagrams. And then this is what I got on the first try. Some AI chit-chat on the right, on the left, and then the code on the right. And I just copy and pasted this into the processing or P5.js web editor. Anybody want to guess what happened? Anybody think it worked? Think it didn't work? Oh, wow. Not what I expected. It worked. I pasted the code into the web editor, and it produced what you see here. Okay, well, full disclosure, on the first try, I had named all my exports IMG 1 through 12 instead of image 1 through 12, so it couldn't find the images. But once I fixed that, it worked. And you start to get like a decent shadow study. Like you could start to see where it's shady and sunny. I think if I click on this, we'll see. Yeah, I still have the original version. And if I could click play, I like left this one mostly intact. That's what I did, like first try. I was pretty amazed. Though I'm not sure how to get back. We're back. So now I'm going to take a little detour and talk about what this P5 thing actually is. Processing is a beginner-friendly open source library intended for artists, designers, and other creative people who want to get into coding. To get started, like they have that web editor, you just press play and start making stuff. Like this thing on the left, maze editor. This is the first time I ever made a depth-first search, and it has a recursive backtracking algorithm, which sounds a lot fancier than it is. Or on the right, this is a algorithm visualizer. I think it's like 5 different algorithms, all working on the traveling salesperson problem. So the P5 is actually based off processing, which is the Java library that, if you remember from like 22 slides ago, is the first language I ever learned. So P5.js is just the JavaScript version, which is a bit newer. The .js stands for JavaScript, if you didn't know. I think the .js, that little bit, is the reason I'm allowed to talk about this here. A little connection. Anyway, more importantly, it has a whole bunch of image processing and graphic tools built in, which I used to make my garden sunlight mapper tool, which brings us back to the garden tool. So from the first version, I just did a couple incremental improvements. I'm just going to highlight a few of them for you. First of all, I added more 3D tree models and exported more images so I could get a higher res shadow. This one looks a bit better. And at the cursor, it's calculating a score now for every pixel, how often it's in the sun. Then I tried to add a rectangle for my garden, but the pixels don't equal feet, so the scale was way off. But luckily, I know the size of my house. So you're doing some pixel math. I got it to start as a 4x8 rectangle, because that's the size of the materials we had already bought. I think like the plus and minus keys maybe adjust the size, space rotates the orientation 90 degrees, something like that. And then, now I added the ability to click and place a garden, so you can actually compare the score in different spots. So we're starting to get there. Oh, yeah, I added a loading screen in this little animation because it takes a few seconds and I was sick of staring at like a frozen white JavaScript app every time, which I do a lot at work. And then, in this one I added a little hill climbing optimization algorithm. So the orange thing is actually checking adjacent spots and just moving until it doesn't see anything better nearby. But I think my math's a little off, because this one, it like goes to 101. I don't know exactly what I did there. And I didn't fully model the shade that's the front side of the house. So it's not as accurate, since we weren't trying to plant a garden there anyway. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's some of the commits. Not all of them, because I didn't commit as often as I should. And it was a while before I even created a repo for this, but this one right here is the commit of the project I used to actually physically place the garden in our backyard. And then for some reason, like, I just kept coding. I don't know, I guess I was having a good time and getting into it. So I was gonna do a live demo here, but it was taking a little too long, and I was iffy about sharing someone's address live. So instead, I have a pre-made demo, but I'd be happy to do a live demo for anybody after the talk if they'd like. I have the thing right here, just let me know. I think it's somewhere on GitHub too, but you need a little bit of SketchUp. Oh, right. So this is a video, a pre-made video of me doing the whole thing. It's sped up like 16x, because it took like 16 minutes, so this is a minute. And what it's doing is it's picking a location in SketchUp and then making a rough model of the house, adding context, trees, fences, some of the building outlines I just imported from the map. And then it starts animating between these shadow scenes, and then you can export that entire animation. And then I kind of hastily load it into my app somewhere. I'm just commenting in and out of line because I didn't add a method for uploading images yet. And then I'm running the tool and placing gardens, and this one I had some issue with the tree shadows, but it was a little bit of like file management, naming the exported frames so they worked. So I'm gonna highlight this. Is it going? This silly little tool I like called the bulk rename utility. It's like incredibly powerful. It just renames a whole bunch of files at once. I've been using it for years. But I also use it as an example of maybe the worst UI I've ever seen, which is part of the reason I love it. Like, they just don't care. Anyway, that's pretty much how the whole process works. This is what I spend my weekends doing, making these things. So I'm gonna just wrap it up with a few final thoughts, if that's okay. In general, a few puns too. I think being able to, having and utilizing non-coding interests can be a huge plus. Like, there's singularity or uniqueness, power in diversity. You know, like, this is what I did just by combining my coding and architecture and maybe newfound gardening interests. But maybe you like pottery. You could make an app that optimizes the pot placements in the kiln. Or I had this idea, a running app, maybe it exists, where you could pick out songs whose tempo matches the pace you want to target at certain points along a run. Like, you could be creative, you know? And I think these apps can be fun, useful, and also look a lot cooler on a resume than like, yeah, I built a to-do app with a MERN stack, and for CRUD, at my boot camp I deployed Denilify, which is also like valuable. But and doing this kind of thing, like I sort of demonstrated, with the latest technologies we have, is becoming easier and easier, which brings us to my second point. Use the tech, or, you know, at least experiment with it. Like, my boss has this saying he likes, AI is not going to take your job, but someone using AI might. I think this kind of stuff is particularly important in this field, with the tech stack changing almost daily. Like, I've only been doing this for a few years, but even since I started, the tools I use have changed almost completely. And I'm not just talking about AI. Like, if I hadn't used Claude, this would have taken me a lot longer. But if I hadn't used like Codium's autocomplete or a modern IDE, you know, with debugging and a local server, type checking, that kind of thing, if I hadn't used the P5 library and done a lot of the graphics myself, it just would have taken a lot longer. This is true in my old profession too. Like, if you're an architect out there still hand drafting, you know, with like a Mayline and a radiograph, you're not just going to be making designs a lot slower, but you're probably producing worse results than you could if you were exploring and utilizing the latest tools. I just think it's important to stay curious and experiment with this stuff, even if you don't know where the newest tech is going to take you, which leads to my next point. Yeah, sow different seeds. Like, for example, when I started this, or even now, like, I have no idea where the stuff I learned from this app is going to come in handy in the future. Like, if I may quote one of the greatest witches and wizards of the age, the consequences of our actions are always so complicated, so diverse, that predicting the future is a very difficult business indeed. But however, it's been shown to pay off. Like, this is why companies have big R&D departments, and they invest in things knowing that some or maybe most of them are not going to have any immediate benefit to them. Or like, this is why some governments invest a lot of money in research, Because like there's numerous success stories, you know, of discoveries that were completely useless at the time, but they played a critical role later down the road. Like for more on that, see the Golden Goose Awards, I think they're called. Very interesting stuff. In this case, like I have no idea if or when I'm ever going to use what I learned making this app, but I do know in the past I've done similar explorations like this, and plenty of them have made their way into like my company's production code in interesting ways. Maybe there's more talks there, I don't know. So yeah, architects do this too. Like we make tons of sketches knowing that we're just gonna ignore most of them or throw most of them out, but you can't get to the final design without getting all these different ideas onto paper, going through all these, I don't wanna say failures, but I mean, it's almost like, okay, I'm struggling to come up with a good metaphor here, but it's almost like you're taking all these different, let's say, seeds and planting them in the ground. Like if you only planted one kind or one type, it would be a lot riskier. But if you explore all these different things and nurture all of them, like you never know which ones are gonna grow and end up producing fruit. Sometimes it's the ones you least expect that end up doing the best, kind of like a vegetable garden, perhaps, which, I know, kind of corny. Brings me to my last one, tangible ROI. Okay, so there's a lot of tech out there whose sole purpose is just to influence other tech, you know, like dev tools, linters, formatters that just help you write better code faster. I like Docker as an example, because it's just an app that packages up other apps. Or I have this screen time app on my phone, and it just gives me a dashboard summarizing how much I use a whole bunch of other apps. Maybe I need a screen time app for my screen time app. Like, sometimes it's refreshing to produce something tangible. Like, that's why I still like the architecture field. Most of the work is 3D modeling, but at the end of the day, usually you design something that gets built, like in the physical world, and then it directly affects the lives of the people who inhabit that space. Like in this case, my app will help me produce, get it? Produce something I can eat. And, you know, like edible ROI is always the best, in my opinion. All right, a few last things here. I took this photo after we'd already placed and located and calculated the whole garden thing, and I think it's funny because if you look closely, the gardens are perfectly dodging all the shadows in our backyard. So this means like one of two things. First of all, that it proves the app works. Or second of all, again, it proves I could have just looked outside and done the same thing. I got a couple credits here, the plugins and apps I mentioned, this carrot icon that keeps showing up, the processing P5 thing, and of course CJ's coding garden icon, which basically inspired the entire talk. Oh, and the garden. This is a photo of it this morning. And I like the little, the little sprout there. Also reminds me of the icon that I've been spamming. And then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But if you don't, I prepared some ideas. I'd be happy to answer any of these too. Leave them up for a sec. But that's actually it, I think. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
You could take one of these, it's fine.
I was just curious of the timeline. What was the time from buying the materials and deciding to start building this to kind of having an app that was returning the results that you were planning on using?
This is, the timeline was probably about a week, not of working straight, but I think our friend gave us advice of when to plant, and I think the deadline was the day before Mother's Day or something like that. And I think that week, we got it to at least the stage where we could score the rectangles and pick the best one, where that like highlighted commit was. Yeah.
I noticed that you have some hosing running across your garden, and I'm wondering if you know the optimal amount of water that your garden needs. Also, because I'm working on a little Arduino water sensor thing myself, so I'm hoping we can collab on some watering optimization tips.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea right now how much water the garden needs. We, again, followed a friend's recommendation and bought, these are emitter lines that are 1/4 inch, and they have a drip every emitter every 6 inches, and I think they give off like 0.8 gallons of water per hour, and we're running them like 25 minutes twice a day. But I don't know if it's enough to make the plants grow or too much or too little yet, because this is our first year. So some more research on that, or tech, would be cool. Yeah.
I actually am curious about the threshold for sun versus shade now that you brought it up.
Yeah, that one was pretty simple. All I did was I analyzed each pixel. Pixel gives me a value from like 0 to 255. The image wasn't exactly black and white, so I took the average of the RGB, and then I just picked a value between 0 and 225 that produced a good result, and I adjusted it up and down a little. On my to-do list in my head is to put a UI slider, so you can adjust that on the fly.
Because in the SketchUp, it didn't give you like pure black, right? It just gave you like a grayish. So you turn the dark gray into black.
Yeah, exactly. The diagram, I just found like a line to split it, just to decide where sun is and shade is. I don't know if it was perfect across every type of image, but seems to work enough, at least for my little proof of concept image a few slides ago. This guy.
What other questions?
Did your wife try to talk you out of building this at all? Or was she like, let's just build the garden. You don't need to build an app for it.
I think she was on board. She was excited about it. Not as much as I was. I think more so she wanted to make sure we had it set up in a good location in time. Although I think if we would have just eyed it, I probably would have gotten good enough results anyway.
Yeah, nice.
I had a question about the tests. Did you create some, and did you use AI to generate the unit test or integration test for you?
Yeah, good question. No. I put this question in here because I felt a little shameful. At my company, I'm one of the more protest test enthusiasts who try to get more tests done before PRs, all that kind of stuff. So it's a shame that for this one, I have 0. I would like to add some, although maybe a different thread. I have been using AI to help write a lot of tests, especially static tests that require a lot of more complicated mocking, or just libraries I'm not familiar with. I found that to be really effective.
Did you compare your results to existing like light metering apps?
No, I haven't checked the results against anything other than my photos. If you want to show me what this app is you mentioned, that would be awesome, because I struggled to find an app, or if I had found this app you mentioned, maybe I wouldn't have done this. But I'm sure I would have found some other silly app to build.
One more? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle. So after this, I'm going to get set up. We're going to do a community roundtable where we just talk about anything. But that'll be in about 2 or 3 minutes. So grab some drinks, use the restroom, grab some more food. We'll start back up in 2 or 3 minutes. started in 1 minute. 60 seconds. So finish up your conversations, take your seats.
First one is CSS. It's getting awesome. It's still awesome. The last 2 years, it's just got so many features. I know. I'm behind on a lot of actually in browsers, not just like Chrome only. Logic stuff, right? Oh, exactly.
Check 1, 2. Ooh, okay. Is everyone ready to explore the anything and everything? Yeah? Awesome. Great. So, my name is TJ. You saw me earlier. I am the co-organizer of this meetup. But we're just going to talk about stuff. So I have a few questions to kick us off. But the idea here is we want to hear from everyone that would like to be heard from. So I will start with maybe my own answer to some of these questions. And then if you'd like to speak, we have the spatula of talking. Be sure to wait for that. And you can say what you would like to say. And then also, as other people are talking or bringing things up, I'll pull up some visual references on the web for whatever people might be talking about. So let's actually start here. What is a recent library or framework you have used that you would recommend to others? I make YouTube videos, and I just got done with like a really long YouTube video about a framework called Nuxt, which is built on top of Vue. Who here works with Vue, uses Vue? A few? That's awesome. If you are familiar with Next.js, this is the Nuxt is the Next.js of the Vue.js world, but I would recommend it. If you're getting tired of the world of React, check out Nuxt. It's a meta framework, so you can build things with server-side rendering. They have file-based routing. Nuxt.com to learn more. And yeah, Nuxt, that's my answer to this question. So what is your answer to this question? What's a recent library or framework that you started using that you would recommend to others? Right over here.
I have one on the accessibility topic. It's called GuidePup.
GuidePup.
It
Spelled
is
like that?
Yes. It is fantastic. Does not get enough spotlight, but it is for writing tests using a screen reader. So you can test your UI, and it'll actually say what a screen reader will announce. And so it's great because you don't have to write tests for like, ARIA selected, or ARIA this, or ARIA that, or whatever. You can just write any code and then run GuidePup on it, and then you can make assertions that your screen reader support is correct, that your role is correct, yada, yada, yada. And it's so easy to use. Yeah, it's just a couple lines. It just magically works. It's great.
Yeah. So like, I guess if you've used, what's the one from Microsoft? Puppeteer?
Yeah, Playwright.
Playwright.
Yeah.
Playwright. This reminds me of that because Playwright is like integration testing. So you basically say, click on this thing, make sure that the document has whatever else. Let's just get a quick example of like a Playwright test. writing tests. Yeah, very similar. So like tell the page to go to a place, make sure an element has a specific title. This is like that, but with voiceover. Like start voiceover, and then move on to the next voiceover item. And I guess there's probably like a wait till you specifically hear something. You're expecting something to be within the DOM. You're expecting some instructions to pop up. That's really cool. Yeah, let's see a real world example. Apparently it goes along with Playwright. Wow.
Just as like one example, I was working on a combo box, which is like the final boss battle of
Yeah.
accessible components. If you've worked on one, I'm sorry, and I feel your pain. But I had like 20 tests that someone reviewed and was like, why do you have all these ARIA selected tests? And then I realized it could just be one guide pup test, and it was like 10 lines, and I deleted like 10 stupid, unreadable tests for just like one guide pup test and like a couple lines of code. It's great.
That's awesome. It's pretty cool to see that this also integrates with Playwright. So you can just take your existing Playwright tests and then add a few like voiceover guide pup tests. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. Who's going to try it out? Yeah, heck yeah. I'll also, all of these notes will be on the DenverScript GitHub. So github.com/DenverScript /community roundtable. The last time we did this was in January of 2023, but all the notes I take today, I'll upload them here. You can click these links later. Who else has one? What's a recent library? Yeah.
So two things. One, I feel like you're underselling this video you made. There's a next video. It is 12 hours, like a full course, and I've been going through it as I do a side project to learn Next. So great job, CJ.
Oh, thank you.
And then the other thing, it's not really a framework, is I've been using Polypane. That's a browser. And it's been really great for development. It can do automatic breakpoints, so different frames for each breakpoint, but it also has great accessibility tools. And the thing I always forget about in making sites is like the meta objects and meta tags and share images, and are all of these right? Will it go to LinkedIn and Twitter? And it has like a checklist panel for all of those, and if you're missing it, it says, here's the code. And so this has been really helpful. It does eat up your RAM like crazy. So my M1 MacBook struggles sometimes, but overall, it's great. So if you are working on front-end stuff, I'd highly recommend.
Yeah, I only heard about this recently. Wes Boss from the podcast mentioned it when I was talking about like testing for different device sizes, but you can basically set up all your favorite viewport sizes and then load your site into it. So on this example, they're seeing what their site looks like on an iPhone. Sorry, I lost it. Yeah, an iPhone and then an iPad and a Galaxy, and you see it across all the different ones, so you can test your breakpoints. And then what they were just mentioning was the social cards. So like you throw a URL in there and it'll show you what the preview would look like if it was shared on like in a messenger app or something like that. So yeah, that's awesome. Anybody use Polypane? Same experience? Cool. Sweet. Thank you for that. And thank you for the shout out too. So the Next course, it's on the Syntax FM channel. So this is where I make some of my YouTube videos, youtube.com/@syntaxfm. It is this monster of a video. It's 12 hours long. And we build a full stack app, and I walk you through every single part and piece of it. So it's actually a lot more than just Nuxt. We build out a database. It has auth. It has a map. It's got a lot of stuff in it. So cool. Anyone else? A recent library or framework?
3JS.
Oh, yeah. Have you built anything with it recently? Or?
I'm kind of working on it right now to build out some animations, but it's really cool as a 3D animation tool, and I think it has a lot of possibilities of where it'll go.
Definitely, yeah. So I've only touched it a few different times, but if you just go to their site, 3js.org, you can see the types of things that you can do in all of these just like example apps. Let's just see some of these experiences. This is apparently on the Okay, it's loading. I think it's going to be like a 3D camera or something like that. Never mind. There's a few that are like much easier to demo. I guess this game might have been built with 3.js. So 3.js itself is not a game engine. It's kind of like a 3D rendering thing. I don't think you get physics for free. Maybe you do. Let's look at some of these examples, because you can do things like load in 3D models. So like this is like a 3D model loaded into the browser, and then they're like applying textures to it. And then you can also have 3D models like with animation applied to them. What did you say you were using it for?
Just kind of basic build out, but the cool thing is it seems like it'll let you build out cameras, kind of shadows and that type of stuff, and have a full 3D rendering. So it's kind of like a Maya within JavaScript.
Definitely, yeah. And so this is an example of, I think, being able to change where the camera is looking. So it's a full 3D world, and then you can say, well, I want a camera over here, and it should have this perspective. So yeah, it's sick. I haven't built anything. Maybe I built like a few like random things. I took some of these examples and just like modified them slightly. But if you just go through the examples on their homepage, you can see some of the other stuff that people have done with them as well. So yeah, cool. Anything else?
I just started using Storybook
Oh yeah.
a couple months ago, and that's been a lot of fun. I've been exploring some of the plugins too, and just noticed that there's an accessibility one, which I learned today is A11Y. I thought it was ALLY this whole time, so not very accessible. But Storybook's been awesome.
I don't know if Marlena mentioned it, but did you say why it was called A11Y?
It's a type of abbreviation where you use the first letter, the number of letters in the word, and then the last letter. The other one you're probably familiar with is L18N for localization. They make no sense if you don't already know what they mean.
Yeah, so I call it like A11I. Another one is Kubernetes. They call it K8s because there's 8 letters between the K and the S in Kubernetes. So there's a specific name for it, but yeah, but it's a certain type of abbreviation. But yes, A11Y because there's 11 letters between. But if you haven't heard of Storybook, it lets you create basically component tests in isolation, and you can build out your components in isolation. You technically don't need to test them, but so in this example here, you can see all of the different components that they're working on, and then for each one, you can show what that component looks like when it's rendered out. And typically, there's like some ways of modifying the props in like a nice little UI. And so this is really great if you're building out like a design system, and maybe you want to see what your components look like in a lot of different states, or maybe you work on a really big dev team and you want to very easily split up the work. You can make it so that each part of the dev team is working on different components. They're all visible and usable within this Storybook, and then when you go to actually bring all these components together in your app, it makes it a lot easier to figure out where they're coming from. So did you mention you've been learning about it, you've been using it? Is there any other thing you want to mention about it, or?
There's a couple, if you get into the add-ons, there's some responsive component rendering options you can play with, and I think there's a Playwright integration. There's just so much.
Cool. Yeah, so mobile UX hints, responsive columns.
I've been using it for living documentation for style guides, because I've written like 3 style guides that are outdated as soon as you finish them, and this is working a lot better.
Yeah, and what's also nice about it is the code lives with the components. So like if you already have a React code base, you basically create a Storybook file that imports that component in, and now you have documentation for that component. So yeah, Storybook, very slick. Anything else? I think,
yeah. I've been using pagefind.app to replace Algolia and do a lot of super fast search tasks. Like if you've ever had to search 10,000 or 100,000 documents and want to do it in under 10 milliseconds, you can do it with just S3 and no servers.
wow, okay. So this is like a whole world of things. So what I'm familiar with is, what's the one from Apache? Lucene, is that the one? There's like text search engines, but that requires a server to be running. You could index documents, you could index a bunch of different stuff, and then you have like an API you can interact with to search across those documents. This is not, it's built ahead of time, like ahead of time you build out an index, is that what
Yeah,
happens?
it's like you write the index once, it only takes a few seconds for like 10,000 documents, and it can then be searched. It writes out a couple megs of files that are all like hashed and indexed. It's kind of like a mix between a TRIE tree and a hash map. If you look at their code, you can kind of get the themes of what they're trying to structure.
Yeah.
But you can see there's a demo there of searching all the MDN documentation at the bottom. Like
Let's see.
Yeah, MDN, Godot.
mdn.pagefind.app.
Yeah, so this is pure like CDN-based search for all of MDN, which is kind of wild.
Someone name a JavaScript API. Well, array would, I guess maybe there would be a, but yeah, that's really quick. To array. Iterator.toArray, yeah. No server. So this is, if we could actually look at the network tab to see what's happening here. I'm guessing it's probably just so from the homepage it says they build out a was a static bundle. Yeah, it's built static files of your site. So when we searched for map, it did a GET request against these PF files for index. Fascinating. Yeah, no, this is really cool. I'll have to look into this because typically if you want to have some sort of search bolted onto your app or your company or whatever else, you need servers, you need databases, you need lots of processing power. So to be able to generate it all ahead of time is pretty slick. Cool. Nice. Cool. Anything else? I think I saw a couple other hands. Oh, nice. So it says it runs with, yeah, all of these other like static site generators. But that would make sense because typically a lot of times with Astro, you're building static websites. Who here has not heard of Astro? Anyone? It's okay. It's okay to not know because I will tell you. So it's a framework for building content-driven websites. And the idea is like you can have a bunch of markdown files and like turn it into a blog, or have a bunch of markdown files and turn it into documentation. You can also do more dynamic things as well, but that's what Astro is for. So it would make sense that if you're going to be generating some sort of end result that is static, doesn't require a server, they'd use something like PageFind to be able to search across it. That said, you can do server-side rendering with Astro, and you can have like API routes and stuff like that too, but they shine when you do content-driven sites. Cool. What else? I'll give you another one. I've talked about it at this meetup before. Who here has not heard of Hono? Great. I'll tell you about it now. So this is like I would call it the modern replacement for Express. So typically when you're building out APIs with JavaScript, the go-to for the longest time was Express.js. You require it in, create an app, and say when a GET request comes in on this route, respond like this. This is Express. They were inspired by Sinatra from the Ruby world, but it's very simple to spin up APIs like this. Hono is a bit more modern, looks very similar, but it works on a lot of different runtimes. So one of the great things about it is that it can run on Cloudflare, it can run on Dino, it can run on Vercel, AWS Lambda. The same bits of code can run across all of these, and they just have a ton of built-in helpers and middlewares, and Hono is awesome. So I've pretty much these days, if I need to build an API, I'm reaching for Hono instead of Express.js. So check it out. Yeah. Anything else? All right, let's shift topics. We'll probably do this for another 10 minutes or so. Who here, well, actually, let me flip the question. Who here does not use AI at all when you're writing code? A couple of hands, yeah. I bounce back and forth because I do create tutorials, and typically I don't want the tutorial to have a bunch of random code being suggested. So I spend most of my time in VS Code, but I have been using it. So if everyone's using it, I want to hear from anybody that is willing to talk about it. What are some tips or some tricks that you have for us when using AI coding tools? Maybe a specific AI tool that you've used recently? Yeah, we got one back here.
I've been using RooCode. It's an extension to VS Code.
Was it Root Code?
Roo, R-O-O. And it's a fork of Klein that just moves a lot faster. And they have been just at this bleeding edge of AI agentic work, and it's where I get to experiment with all the latest models and connect to whatever I want to. And it's and their source code is kind of, they've got so much learning you could pull apart in there. Every time I open it up, I learn prompt tricks and all kinds of stuff how to write AI applications. But yeah, this is easily like, yeah, I have been a Windsurf fan and Cursor fan and used them all, but this, yeah.
Cool.
New hotness. This is the new hotness. Yeah.
Honestly, let's do a survey of the room. So there's name all the ways of working with AI encoding. So there's Cursor Editor, which I use. There's also just GitHub Copilot inside of VS Code. They recently made that free for everyone, at least like a few free requests per day. And then what Dan just mentioned is Klein. Who here has not heard of Klein? So this is an open source extension that lets you use AI inside of VS Code. I believe it was like popularized maybe even before Copilot came out, and now it's better than Copilot. Copilot still needs a lot of work till it's going to be decent. But this is open source, and you can install it, but you add your API keys. So if you want to talk to OpenAI, you want to talk to Claude, you just add your API keys in the settings, and then it gives you like this chat window in auto-suggest, but you're just paying for your API usage instead of paying a monthly bill to a company. So yeah, that's Klein. And then apparently RooCode forked from them, which I had not heard of. So that's cool.
Way after, like the whole community's been developing on Reddit, kind of confidently without a website, and like a month ago they had a website.
RooCode.com. Cool, yeah.
Still that Vercel site, huh? It looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, they might be using like ShadCN or something. Everything looks like this these days.
CJ, do you know why? So if they all connect to just some other AI agent, why would one be better than the other if they're all just?
Yeah, I have some. I don't know for sure, but it comes down to the prompts that they're sending over and what context they decide to send over as well. So that's one of the things in my experience that I really, really like about the Cursor editor is its ability to get context from my code base when I prompt it to give me back relevant responses. Because if I have like 4 or 5 files open, it's smart enough to know that, oh, this prompt that I'm writing out right now is in relation to some of these files that I have open. So determining what pieces of context to send along with the prompt is what the extension or what the editor is going to be doing. So I imagine there's some secret sauce in there. And then also indexing the code base. So like Cursor, I believe they create vector embeddings for like all the files in your code base so that the search is really quick and has the right context when they're sending it for the prompt. But one recent bit of news is GitHub Copilot is going to be open sourced. So this was announced at Microsoft Build just, I think, this last Monday. And this is huge. It's not open source yet. I think they plan on starting to release some of the source in like July or so. But this is where we'll see where the secret sauce was, because we'll actually get to see all the prompts that they were sending to the various AIs inside of the Copilot extension, because the Copilot extension was closed source. Basically, it was, you could add it, but no one could ever, I mean, you could probably decompile it, but it would be like minified and stuff. But now it's going to be open source. We're going to be able to see all the what they do with the prompting and why they suck so bad compared to the other ones. But being open source, we could potentially make it better. What are some other AI coding tools that you all use? Oh, Windsurf, yes, of course. I actually haven't even tried it. I did try Codium. So Codium is where they, is that how you spell it? Codium was an extension for VS Code first. And I used that for a while before I switched over to Cursor. But then the Codium team started up their own editor called Windsurf. And then Windsurf got acquired by OpenAI for $3 billion. So that's a thing. I think I saw a hand or a question.
Yeah, two things. Claude Code with CLI. And then both in Claude Code and Cursor are the only two of these I've used, but I think they both do a good job of not just indexing your code base, but I know with Cursor, you can select which version of the docs for the framework you're in. And so that, I think, is part of the secret sauce of how they index the docs so that when you're asking it a question, it gets the most recent answer, because that's something I've run into where it spits out code that's solving problems from 5 years ago that now we have new APIs or new methods for.
See.
And also Svelte 5 with runes changed so much, and that's what I use the most. And a lot of AI has a really hard time with it because it came after their training window closed. So with both Claude Code and Cursor, like, you can more specifically say, here's what I want you to reference, and I think that's part of that. Yeah, what you called secret sauce of getting it right.
Definitely. Yeah, and so I have not dove into Claude Code just yet, but I did get some free credits for it, so I want to try it. I right now I have a video idea where I put Claude Code up against Cursor just to kind of compare how they both perform the same tasks. But the interesting thing about Claude Code is it runs completely from your terminal. So it's not an IDE. You're basically prompting in the terminal, and it has access to all the files in that folder, of course, but it's definitely a different experience than using something like Cursor, because when I'm using Cursor, I tend to want to maybe fix some of the things that it generates, or like it'll generate something like, oh, that's not quite it. Instead of prompting it, I'll go in and like modify it myself. With Claude Code, it seems like it's way more towards like pure vibe coding of like you just have to keep prompting it because you can't really edit the files. I guess unless you use Vim. You could use a terminal editor, but then it would be a separate window. I don't know. Basically, it's all prompts. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, is it mainly prompting from the terminal?
Overall, yes.
Yeah.
But I have that and VS Code open, and so it does the prompt. It says, are these the changes you want me to make? I almost always just hit yes. And if it's mostly right, I hit yes, and then I go into VS Code and edit it there. And I would say, like, of the suggestions it gives, it's the one that has been the most helpful out of these. I think when, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You asked, like, who thinks this AI worked the first time, and we all said no, it didn't. And we, because we're surprised that it would work the first time, that Claude Code is the one that, for me, has gotten 90% there more frequently.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think, like, right now, a lot of these tools, like, are using the same models. Like, they're all calling out to the similar, like, OpenAI APIs or Gemini APIs. So it really comes down to how they craft that prompt, how they send across the context. Any other AI coding tools you all use? Codex Jules?
JULES. It's a Google project they just announced. It's on. They've just announced a bunch of these.
Oh, these are two different ones.
Yes.
There's one called Codex.
Yeah, Codex is Git or is Open AI's.
Oh yeah. Okay. I haven't used this one. Is it browser based?
It's unlike everything else. It's kind of it's meant for long-running operations.
A lightweight coding agent that runs in your terminal. Fascinating.
I guess they've run out of words because I think there's a.
And then the other one was Jules. Experimental coding agent that helps you fix bugs, add documentation, and build new features. Cool. So you connect it to a repo, and then I guess you can just start prompting. Because so I think this is similar to, like, GitHub has a tool like this. Is it called, like, workflow? Not workflow, it's like agents or something like that, where if you open an issue, it can actually, like, try to solve the issue. So, like, it'll check out a branch, it'll, like, do its AI thing to try and solve it, it'll make a PR, you can then ask for changes, and all of this is just an AI doing the thing. Is this similar to that, or?
Figma.
Oh, Figma, okay. Cool.
Probably be easier to demo. Thanks, Jack. It'll probably be easier to demo on their blog page. I'm sorry, I didn't get the magic spatula. Yeah, they had a blog announcement for it that did a better job of demoing the jewels.
Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, it's a big old conference for it, right?
Your autonomous coding agent.
Search engine named Google.
Well, I use DuckDuckGo to find this Google article. Yeah. Okay. I guess it looks like this is doing some coding stuffs. Yeah. Cool. Does anyone here use, like, browser-based ones like V0 or is Bolt? Yeah, is it Bolt? Lovable? There's too many to keep track of, but yeah, v0.dev is the one from Vercel. For V0? Oh, wow. Cool. And then Bolt is a similar one. It runs in the browser. But do we know who's behind Bolt? Oh, Stackblitz. Yeah, so Stackblitz, they make like a in-browser node environment. Cool. All right. There's a lot of stuff here. My opinionated thing is, if you haven't tried it yet, use Cursor. Because they do give you, like, I think, like a 14-day free trial. And actually, am I in Cursor? Yeah, I'm in Cursor right now. It's not giving me any suggestions, though. Am I logged in? Because I guess there's a lot of ways to use the AI, right? You could just paste stuff into ChatGPT. You could use the chat window. You could use, like, the auto suggest. Like, is it working? It's not quite working. Maybe because I'm in a markdown file. Okay, it's working. So this might be the one AI experience that you've had, which is ghost text, where it's like, do you want to write this? Yes. Do you want to write that? Sure. I find myself doing this less and less, and mainly sticking to the chat window, because I pretty often find that, like, I spend more time just, like, reading the suggestion and trying to make sure, yeah, is that exactly what I want? Or no, that's not exactly what I want, so I have to backspace. I find myself these days using the chat window and then kind of just prompting from here. So Cursor has agent mode. They might have been one of the first ones to do it. I think all the other tools have it now too. But this allows it to do multiple things. It can go off and search the web. So if you ask it something and it's not sure, it'll get some web results, and that will help it with the response. And then it can also generate commands that it runs in your terminal. So it'll generate the command to install dependencies or whatever else. So if you haven't tried Cursor, try it with this window, use agent mode. It might just change your life. And let's see. I guess of all the others, I've only done, like, a little bit of prompting in the browser. I find that, like, with V0 or Bolt, it's an in-browser editor with prompting, and I find that it gets backed into corners pretty quickly. Where, like, you'll ask it for something, it'll do it. You'll ask it for a modification, and then it can't quite do it. So yeah, if I had to suggest something, it would be Cursor. Second probably would be GitHub Copilot, just because you can use that for free, and if you're not using any AI, but you should be using at least a little bit of AI. So yeah, we're pretty much out of time. Any last words? Anybody not get to say anything that wants to say something? Cool. Well, I appreciate you all. All these notes will be on GitHub. So yeah, thank you so much. I will say Thursday of this week, if you go to syntax.fm/meetup, we are doing a live recording of the Syntax podcast here in Denver. So on Thursday, May 29th, Wes will be there, Scott will be there. We also teamed up with Vercel and Mux, so they'll be doing a panel. We'll just answering all your code questions or whatever you would like. There's free food. We're going to a bar afterwards. It's going to be a good time. If you go on the DenverScript meetup page, I have this event here. You can't RSVP here, but you can see the details, and then it just links off to Eventbrite where you have to get a ticket. The tickets are free, but I'd love to see you there. So on Thursday, come out. It'll be in Lodo. So yeah, love to see you there. And then next month's meetup will be on June 24th. We don't have any speakers lined up yet, but there are a few that submitted that I'll need to reach out to, but we'd love to see you next month as well. Do I need to mention anything else from the other organizers? Do we have any pizza we need to give away? Yes. Just grab the pizza on your way out. All right. Thank you. Hopefully see you next month. See you on Thursday.